Welcome back to Light the Wick. Charles, how are we feeling tonight?
Feeling good, as always. Feel great.
Do you ever lie to me when I ask you that?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I mean there are probably times where I'm not feeling great and I'll just put on a face. I'll put on a smile for you and make you think everything's great.
Wow, that is upsetting me. But, I hope that by the end of the episode at least you're smiling because you've had a great time. You've talked about John Wick with your good buddy, and you're bringing this magic to the world. People need this, I feel like.
That's something I cannot lie about. Yes, it's true. By the end of every episode, I'm always very happy.
Okay, good.
Because we just have such great guests, and it's always a blast. So it does work that way. I can't lie to you. I'm always happy by the end.
Okay, good. Well, today we are talking to Rob Nederhorst, who is the visual effects supervisor for John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum. We don't really say Parabellum enough on this show, but we really should.
It's true, we don't. It just makes the title so long.
It does, and it's unnecessary,
Wasn't it excommunicado at one point? Wasn't that the subtitle?
Oh, I didn't know that, but I like that subtitle a lot more.
Yeah, I think I would like excommunicado more than Parabellum. Or is it possible that John Wick Chapter 2 had that?
Oh, maybe. I saw on TV last night, Blade 2 came up with the subtitle Blood Hunt, which is I always love that subtitle. But
wait, Blade 2 has a subtitle?
Yeah.
In the actual movie on screen?
Not on screen. It was in early marketing materials, and I think it was gone by the time it actually opened. Oh. But yeah, It lives on in the cable channel listing for the Sci-Fi Channel presentation of Blade 2. So there's that. But obviously, we are going to get into a lot of squib talk today. A lot of blood stuff, which is always fun about John Wick and all the kind of invisible effects that this movie has.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, it's pretty impressive, the visual effects in this movie. And on the back end, I'll talk about a couple things that we're going to put in our show notes that are really great. So I won't get into too much detail right now. But the VFX in this movie are very impressive.
They are. Do you have any anecdotes to share with us at the top of the episode, Charles, or are we just going to have to wait for after?
I think you're just going to have to wait till after, when I'm extremely happy.
Well, you know what I can't wait to do right now?
Oh, yeah. I know. You're always so excited to do it, so let's hear it. I want to hear it.
Okay. This episode is brought to you by Jeremy Dillon, and we encourage everyone to check out his podcast, My Favorite Album, which is just great. He talks to filmmakers, musicians, songwriters about the music they love and how it's influenced them and their work. This episode is also brought to you by John B. and also Real Estate Interests LLC, commercial real estate advice for growing companies. They can help strategize and save even if the companies aren't looking to buy or sell right now. So keep that in mind. All of you people out there, these are our sponsors, and I love doing the plugs.
Yes, you do. You're the salesman here, and you do a great job of it.
Oh, thank you. It gives my life meaning. But we are going to throw it now to Kevin Blumenfeld's John Wickish music, and we'll be back right after. We are so thrilled today to be joined by Rob Nederhorst. You did the visual effects on John Wick Chapter 3, correct?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And what was that experience like for you?
I mean, I kind of want to say life-changing, to be honest with you, because it was. It truly was. It was an experience like no other. Yeah, it was awesome.
I mean, why was it so life-changing?
Oh, so many reasons, gentlemen. For one, I was going through my own situation in life that kind of, I was working for vendor side for a long time. For 20 years, I've been in the game since '98, and I was been working for vendors the whole time. And at this point in my career, the opportunity came up, and I had actually met Chad, and we'll talk about that meeting, I'm sure, in a little bit. But yeah, I met him, and so then they offered the job to myself and the company I was working for, and they said, do you want to do this job? And a lot of times I had, it was kind of a, do I want to be on set this long? Am I going to be away from my spouse, et cetera, et cetera? I wasn't sure. And so finally I made actually a pretty selfish decision, to be honest with you. And I said, you know what? Yes, I'm going to do this movie, and I'm going to go to New York for 4 or 5 months, whatever that timing is. and just do this thing. So and it was a decision, honestly, that kind of a decision that scared me a little bit, because I hadn't done a movie of this size before. I had done whole films for Netflix and some other studios, but never to this level, to where I always had a studio to fall back on in case there was a problem. I had a whole team, and in this case, it was me and the producer. And obviously, we have coordinators and data wranglers and stuff. But in terms of, being in charge and having nobody to answer to, that was the situation. So it was a little bit of a scary situation in that way. But ultimately, like I said, it changed my life and my career in a very large way. And it was eye-opening and phenomenal, really.
So it was a good experience. You didn't go to New York and then regret it months later, saying, why did I do this?
No, in fact, it was kind of the opposite. Like, why? I wish I had this opportunity sooner. It was really,
right.
It really was great. Even, standing in feces a few times here and there was worth it.
Yeah, was that human feces or horse feces?
So that was another time. Yeah, horse feces definitely happened during the horse scene. But yeah, there was a time. So there's one of the moments where out of Grand Central Station, Wick, he bails out of there, and somebody's on a bike and comes to chase him, and he goes and tackles that dude. So that is in an alley just outside of Grand Central. And that alley is one of the smelliest places I've ever been in my entire life. It's horrifying. There's only maybe 2 other smellier places that I've been in, and I was there for this movie for both locations. Just imagine raw sewage that had been sitting out in the baking sun for weeks. It's horrible. I went through 2 pairs of shoes on Wick, by the way. One of them I just kind of wore out, and the other one just smelled bad, and I had to throw them away. Terrible.
Wow.
Yeah, that was the first time I stood in, and that was, it was at night. We shot everything at night, so our entire circadian rhythms got all messed up on that movie, because you're coming home at 5 o'clock in the morning as the sun's going up, and then you sleep, and then you wake up at noon, you do some stuff, and you're back at it about 6 p.m., 7 p.m.
And you smell like poop the whole time.
Those clothes were bad. In fact, all my clothes always smelled bad, because it was, New York in the summer, and we were shooting in weird places, so everything would smell. You shoot in Chinatown, everything smells kind of funky down there. Chinatown's a rad place. I love it. But it's, it doesn't smell like daisies over there. So
right.
I would literally come home to my apartment, and I rented a place that had a washer dryer. It was one of the requirements. So I, clothes off in the washer dryer, pass out. Actually, shower, then pass out. Otherwise, I did that one time, and the bed smelled terrible, and I'm not doing that again. So then I had to change the way I did things. But yeah, every day, full clothes washing of what I wore the day before. Oh, yeah.
Well, I think, a key to the John Wick franchise, and certainly in part 3, is the digital muzzle flashes and the digital squibs and the blood hits and things like that.
Headshots.
Did you come up with headshot? Charles loves the headshots. Yes.
Loves the headshots.
Yeah. Like what is your sort of philosophy on that? Did you sort of create a shorthand? Is each muzzle flash and gunshot unique?
They are not all unique. Some of them, obviously different guns have different characteristics. We did kill a whole lot of actual people to get the headshots right, just for reference. I'm joking, of course. We nobody was harmed, and extreme safety precautions were taken, as you can imagine. So one of the things that way back in the day, people used to have blanks that they would put in the guns, and you would see an actual muzzle flash. Life is good. However, these days, safety concerns, they plug the guns. And so out of the chamber, you'll see a little bit of a spark, a little bit of a fire that comes out of there. And we have to remove those. And then we have to put the muzzle flash in. So actually now muzzle flashes are twice the amount of work, because you need the recoil, because otherwise the actor's just going bang, bang, bang. Oh, cool. Yep, that's great. And you're just shooting for nothing. So you need that recoil. And so you need a little bit of that kick, because authenticity is key for the John Wick universe. We do everything properly. People are trained by real weapons experts, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, so, we had lots of reference of a variety of different muzzle flashes, And for headshots, we had the same thing. We had a whole day of where we shot blood elements, squirting different ways, spraying in different ways, splattering on the wall. We had our production manager who was super excited to do that. And he spent all night on a stage just literally splatting red goo all over glass so that we got all this great stuff. But as a result, we have a lot of fun. I don't know if fun is right when you're talking about murdering 182 people like we did in this movie. But we had a lot of fun doing that. And that is, to me, that is John Wick, right? Is we in the creative team, and specifically, Chad is always like, we want violence, not gore. So there's other movies that go for the gore, and it goes for like show all the muscles and the bones and the sinews and just make it real nasty. We don't do that here. Violence, not gore. Violence, not gore. So we want to have high levels of action without grossing people out. And I think it's, doing that and having a delicate balance there is why, besides obviously Keanu Reeves, is why a lot of women like these movies also. Because there's a high level of violence, but it's not like watching a slasher movie where they're, people's faces are ripped off or, like The Boys, for example, is a great example of that, which I absolutely love, by the way. That show is phenomenal. But it's high gore. Right. So there's a certain demographic of people that probably won't watch that show because of the gore level, because they're not into it. But on the Wick franchise, it's a very delicate balance. We don't show brain matter most of the time. We did on one shot, and the producer dialed us back. And I'll tell you about that in a second. We do every once in a while. You go a little far, right? The whole knife to the eye thing. That's a great moment. But again, it's not like blood splurting everywhere. You get that little trickle that just goes down, and you see the membrane pinch in. Oh. So it's right. Yes. Okay. See. So what I love about that, Charles, is so many moments in this movie. And for me, movie watching should be a visceral experience, right? If I'm watching a romantic comedy, I don't really care about that. But if I'm watching an action movie, I want to have a visceral experience. So what I would tell all the vendors on big moments like that, the eye thing, and there's a shotgun moment where he takes the shotgun, he blows somebody, and like a dude's head just goes pop, and he lands on the ground. There's a couple of moments like that where I told the vendors, I said, look, guys, do this. And when we get it to a point where it's, not just temp, I want you to bring in somebody that hasn't, when you could still bring people into the screening room. Remember those days? So bring somebody into the screening room. And if they don't physically move when you see the shot for the first time, if their body doesn't move, we haven't gone far enough. I want somebody to do exactly what you just did, Charles, where that membrane goes like, and you go, oh, that's what I want to have happen. And if you don't see that reaction, go further. Go until somebody gets squeamish. And now we've hit that level. Don't go further than that. You don't want them to go, oh, God, oh, no. You don't want them to walk away, but you want them to wince. Right. You want them to experience it with the character, but not all the way. Because then the fun goes away. Right? You still want it to be fun. And that big headshot from the shotgun is another one of those. That was one where we went a little too far. We showed a little too much cavitation of the head, and the blood was literally pouring out of this dude's head. But that shotgun moment, I would be in the test screenings, and I knew the moment was coming, and I'm watching the screen, but then I did this. I would turn, and I would look, and I would watch the audience like a hawk. And that shotgun moment, if everybody would go, ooh, because they would watch this dude's head just explode. And I went, yes. That's what we want. And people would talk about, oh man, there was that guy. Yeah, that's what I want to see. I want people to experience the movie that way.
Was that the brain moment that you had to dial back?
We did have to dial that back.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Because we went pretty far. And so we're sitting in the digital intermediate facility doing some color work. And, it's the big screen and we're almost done. And Chad and I are sitting in the front row. And Basil Ivanek, who's one of the producers of the film, he's there as well. And we're watching it, and the head goes pow, and the blood's everywhere, blah, all this stuff. And he looks over at Chad and I, and he just says, nope, that is not happening. We do violence, not gore. Dial it back. So we did. We brought it back and we actually darkened it a little bit. We made it a little bit less immediately visible. If you go back and step frame through it, it's still pretty gross. But again, first or second viewing, it's not something anybody really catches. And that's what we're trying to avoid, is the gross out factor. It's already a hard R rated movie, so we're not really trying to worry about ratings with the John Wick film. But it's the immediate reaction from the audience. And that's key for us.
I've always wondered about this, and tell me if I'm just completely out of my mind, but do the digital gunshots, does it make it easier to do the airplane version? Does somebody just hit delete and those all go away and then it's ready for viewing on Delta? Is that a factor?
I guess you would just have to make the movie 5 minutes long, and it's just Wick getting on the subway, gets off the subway, shows up at the doctor's office, nothing happens because you can't show the sewing, and he gets out of there. That would be the shortest. It would be a commercial.
Right.
We didn't really make any adjustments for the airplane version. Or
really?
If somebody did, I was not involved.
Okay. I've always wondered about that. I mean, there's a lot of VFX stuff. Charles is obsessed with the fake glass in the knife fight, but also the knives themselves were CGI, right? There's Keanu's big moment where he cuts off his finger.
Yep.
Can you talk about these moments a little bit?
Absolutely. So that warehouse moment was basically the first thing that we shot when we started principal photography. And we tried some glass. I'm a big fan of practical. I love practical effects, because when you get it in camera, it looks super real, and you can't beat reality. So, one of the first things I told Chad is look, man, I hate visual effects. Visual effects are annoying. If you don't do them right, they take the audience out of it. I said, I want you to fire me after principal photography because there's no visual effects to be done. That's the dream world that I live in, and that's how I'm going to drive creatively my visual effects team. I'm going to work with you guys, and we're going to avoid as many visual effects as we can. I'm a weird supervisor that way. And I told my current director, Michael Schaubs, on Conjuring, I told him the same thing. Because I know we're going to do visual effects. But if we as a creative group can avoid visual effects and things are in camera, the audience gravitates to that stuff more. And it also gives us, as visual effects department, more time to do better work on other shots that really, really need it, versus all the little piddly things that may or may not, need it. But we did it because we had to, because we didn't spend enough time to really plan a little bit and put our heads together and find the best solution humanly possible. So the glass, we tried some glass, but the big issue with the glass is the rubberized glass is very slippery. So it's super dangerous for the stunt performers and obviously for Mr. Keanu Reeves. We don't want anybody slipping and falling and hurting themselves or anything. So we said, okay, no more glass on the floor. But every once in a while, we would sprinkle some glass where there weren't any performers doing anything, just so we'd have some glass sitting around for two reasons. One, so we don't have to put it in, even though we put a lot of glass in everywhere. Two, for reference. What does stuff look like? I'm a big fan of that too. I'll shoot as much reference as humanly possible. Even the glass on the side cabinets, that's all fake, because they break all the freaking glass. And so you can't go breaking glass with your elbow because you're going to get real cut. And, a lot of that glass is plate glass, so it breaks in large chunks versus the glass that's in the glass office building, which is tempered glass, which breaks in small pieces. That's why there are different types of glass simulations that we did. And that the glass was definitely challenging, but our team, I'm a real stickler when it comes to data gathering. My whole thing is scan everything. And so I told my LiDAR team and the team that does HDRIs and everything, I said, look, scan everything. If there's a location that we're shooting in, scan it. HDRs, photogrammetry, do everything. Even if it's a walk and talk, I don't care what it is. Scan, scan, scan. I want so much data that we have to purchase hard drives every week to put the data on there. Because hard drives are cheap, but going back to the location, not cheap. Or sometimes impossible because the location doesn't exist anymore. Or somebody else is shooting in it, so we can't get in there. And as it generally happens in films, you shoot everything and you try to get all the coverage you need. Obviously Evan Schiff says this on his stuff. You get all the coverage you want. Every once in a while, you're missing that one line of dialogue that you really need to glue the scene together, or you're missing that look that really makes the impact for the audience to put themselves in that moment with the characters, and that's what's key. It's like, okay, well, what are we going to do now? Okay, well, we can recreate a digital version of this very easily because we took all the photos. And so that's part of our responsibilities in the visual effects department, is to prepare for 6 to 8 months down the road when we don't know what we need or not. So I say get everything. So yeah, we scanned the snot out of that warehouse space. Full everything. So when we needed to put glass in, I'm not saying it was easy, but it was very doable because of the amount of data that we gathered. And, because of my history on the vendor side of things, I kind of know what the vendors need because I've been on the receiving end of not getting the data that I need, but then also getting the data that I need. And I know where we need to spend our time resource-wise to really gather what we need to get. And that's just us essentially working with the locations department, the set deck department, and saying, hey guys, when can we get in there? When can we sneak in there so that we're not always dealing with the director of photography, and going in and, while we're actually doing principal photography and doing all that scanning, that's usually a big problem. We'll do what we can, but I try to either come before or after to get the big scan of the environments. And, we did that with the antique warehouse, as we call it, the big knife fight scene. Yeah. But yeah, all that glass, all CG, all the knives, all CG, brighter than they should be, but done for effect, I wouldn't say visual effect, but that sounds bad. Done for visceral effect. There we go. Because you want to see the knife flying in and hit the dude in the forehead. So we would do whatever we could to create little blings and pings on the knife, on the knife blades and on the knife handles, all that kind of stuff. To the point to where it looked wrong, it wasn't correct, but it looks cool and it works. And so now we're in movie land. We're making a movie. Right. We're not making reality, we're making a movie, and that's what's really critical. And so sometimes we bend what's correct in order to make something that's really visually interesting.
Right.
There's so many animals in John Wick, the series, but especially in 3 with all the horses. So I wanted to ask, what kind of visual effects are you deploying to, are there any animal, some of the wrangling, are there people who are off camera who are on camera who are then erased, or is it entirely practical? I mean, what level of assistance are you giving these animals in their performances?
Well, the horse foo. We'll talk about horse foo first. So horse foo is great. We did have a wrangler. Obviously, we had some animal wranglers for the horses, and the horse that kicks the dude in the head, he was a feisty character. That guy. Everybody said, just get away from that horse. That horse is you don't want to mess with that thing. And they, luckily the animal wranglers are incredibly good with the animals. The animals really respect them, and they respect the animals, and everybody's very cognizant of making sure the animals are in the best state always, which is great to see. But yeah, we did that moment, and we did have somebody holding on to the horse. And what I do is, a lot of people dress those folks in green, but I don't like dressing those folks in green because it doesn't really help me remove them anymore. That doesn't make any sense. I'd rather dress somebody in black. So we had these like weird shadow figures that would show up because they're there. They're like dudes dressed in fully, it's like the, the Green Man, but except he's completely head to toe in black. And so the good thing is, because John Wick takes place at night a lot of the times, sometimes you get away with, you don't see that person. So it would reduce the amount of cleanup that we had to do, or make the cleanup easier, because you're not taking this bright green blob and then having to paint out the bounce from the green on other surfaces. The black doesn't reflect anything, so then the cleanup becomes a lot less painful. And that's the other thing we did. But yeah, we would remove the trainers during the horse foo, and then we did split screens for the dudes that get kicked in the face or in the neck or whatever. Yep. And then we would just speed up the hit by 1 or 2 frames, just like the tiniest bit. And the stunt performers were awesome. Those guys killed it every time. But then every once in a while, it's like, how do you make somebody go, oh, how do you get that physical reaction? Speed it up by a frame or 2 here and there. So we did that. Super fun. Now, when we did the work that was underneath the elevated train, a lot of people don't know this, but all the street that you see there is all digital. That's 100% digital street. And hopefully nobody saw that. That's good.
Now they know, so you know.
Yeah. If you don't see what I've done, boy, that makes my day. I got to tell you. Yeah, so the reason that is an all-digital street is, they don't want horses running on the streets because that is very, very bad for them, bad for their joints, their hooves. It's just not good for them. So you have specific pads that are in the stables and everything. Those pads had to be rolled out every single day before we started shooting. And so that way the horses could run safely. The motorcycles had to drive on those. That was a whole situation. And then one night it rained. And then, of course, nobody's doing anything because you can't have horses running on wet pads. That's super dangerous. And the guys on the bikes couldn't be doing that. And also, those gentlemen on the motorcycles were riding electric motorcycles because they were silent. Oh. And so the horses wouldn't get scared by the noise of the motorcycles.
Oh, yeah. That's cool.
That was super interesting. I remember seeing the bike at the stunt facility, and I was like, "Oh, that's a cool looking bike. What is that thing?" And I'm looking around. I go, "Something about it's electric. Oh, that's cool, huh? Electric bikes. What are they trying to do?" And then talking to the stunt coordinator, Scott Rogers, he's like, "Yeah, we have to make sure that the horses don't get spooked. Horses are spooked easily because they're prey animals, and so we have to make sure that they're they feel safe and they feel comfortable. So having their trainers there is key, but then also making sure that there's no extraneous noises like motorcycles running next to them. And those motorcycles are completely silent, and you put a rubber pad down, they're even quieter. So those things would just go and just nothing. It's crazy. But then, we went and replaced all the ground with correct streets and everything. That was... Wow. That was the horse moment, and then we did a little bit of work in the grain market for the dogs, as well as obviously when the dog gets shot. No dog was ever put in any danger at all, like not even close. Because Chad loves dogs. Well, that's one of the reasons why, obviously you've got John Wick as a dog lover, but Chad's a big dog lover too. And so not at any point was anything done to where the dog would be in danger, and the trainers were all there, and these dogs were extremely well trained for months to make sure that they had the athletic ability to do 99.9% of the work that they were supposed to do on camera. But having a dog fall down is basically the antithesis of what a dog likes to do. They'll lay down very slowly and just chill out, but falling down, they don't really do that. So we glued 2 takes together. That didn't quite work. And then, the team over at El Ranchito, they built a digital version of the dog so we could slam it down on the ground and obviously not impair the real dog. But we shot the scene with the real dog with the intention of using it. And, we didn't get the impact that we wanted. So we did a little augmentation.
Was there anything that you found particularly challenging that you thought was going to be a real breeze, or something that you did think was going to be easy and ended up being, a logistical nightmare?
There's a few of those. I'll tell you the thing that I thought was going to be super problematic was the bike chase. The bike chase obviously being, we got a lot of inspiration from a Korean film called The Villainess, which is an insane movie, highly recommended. It's just wall-to-wall madness. And we tried to get in contact with the team that did the visual effects and how they did it, et cetera, but ultimately we had our own plan for how we would pay homage to the Villainess work. And it was, once again, you've got the best stunt team in the world doing this work, and so meticulously planned over and over and over, rehearsed for months. And one day I remember I went to the stunt facility because I would go there often to see what was happening with this scene, because I knew that we'd have to do some visual effects here and there, to make things work. And so I went over there, I saw them rehearsing this scene, and they had these big sleds that they were moving stuff around, and how are they going to do it? And I looked at it and I went, something feels odd. It doesn't feel like this is big enough. And I said, "Hey guys, how wide are your lanes for your cars right now?" And they told me the number, and I can't remember what the number was. And I said, "That feels too small. I don't know. My nerd brain has something else in mind. So I called my LiDAR guy and I said, hey, would you do me a favor? Would you go on the Verrazano Bridge and would you go scan some stuff? And he goes, are you out of your mind? I'm not going to walk on the bridge and scan something. I'm like, just don't get killed. It's real simple. Go on the bridge, don't get killed or hurt, and it'll be fine. And he's like, you're an idiot. And I said, well, I'll get locations to take you over there. So, yep, we sent our guy locations. Boom. We scanned it. And as it turns out, how the stunt team had been rehearsing, it was about 1.5 to 2 feet wider in reality than what they had been rehearsing. Normally, that's not too big of a deal, right? Like, obviously, these guys are professionals. They rehearse the night. All the stuff is super rehearsed, so they know what they're doing ahead of time, with room for improvisation when the set changes a little bit. But when you have to deal with a bunch of guys who have to push sleds certain distances, and you have to make sure that cameras line up with those sleds at certain beats, now distances really matter, and especially when it affects your camera field of view and what bikes do at certain times when they fall over and they crash, the whole thing. I said, hey guys, I think the numbers are a little wacky. So they went, oh crap. And so then they had to redo all of the work that they did. They had to reshoot it again. We ended up rehearsing that, even including my department, 3 additional times before we shot it with Keanu. That was the initially the challenging part. I wasn't even sure how we were going to put it all together, but the team at Image Engine did just a phenomenal job, and they really, really glued it together. One of the big moments for that is when you have, somebody jams a sword into the back of the wheel and it flips the bike over and it smashes into the other guy, takes him out. So we had shot on the Verrazano Bridge for 3 nights. We had shot those stunts, that work with an SFX team, the stunt team. Keanu came out and did some riding. Obviously, he's an excellent rider, and that moment was captured. It was beautiful. Well, we cut it together, and at some point, you've got this bike that's being dragged, so it's got a sled underneath it, and it's got the little pop, and it flips over, and all like the action of having the bike flip over and smash up the dude and the body's rolling everywhere. That looked awesome. It's hard to simulate that stuff and make it look good, in my opinion. So you want to shoot all that stuff. But it didn't quite work. Something was a little off. And we kept putting it together, and we did the whole, paint cleanup. We did all that work. And then finally, I talked to the vendor and I said, look guys, when you show us these shots, do me a favor. I don't want to see any gray shade, because normally you see gray shaded versions and then you see the next version. I said, I don't want to see any gray shade. I know what gray shade looks like. I don't care. Just give me more final stuff, because then we can put it in the movie. Because I'm never going to put gray shade in the movie because it's super distracting. The test audiences don't know what gray shade is, because they don't need to know what gray shade is. They're an audience. They don't need to know how the sausage is made. They just want to see pretty pictures. I'm kind of the same way.
And is gray shade like a rendering of it or something? Or what does that term refer to?
Yeah, so basically imagine the motorcycle, instead of having, the black paint and the chrome and the plastic and the leather, everything is made out of like a clay.
Okay.
So it has no material properties of any kind. Well, if you're an audience member and you watch a scene with gray stuff, you're out of the movie. It's immediate. Just like when you see green screen. If you're an audience member, you're out of the movie. Well, part of my job is to keep people engaged in the film. People are engaged in the film. It makes my life way easier, because then they're less critical of visual effects if we do our jobs properly. And that is my job as visual effects supervisor, is keep everybody engaged. People have to be into the movie. If they pull out of the movie, boy, that's a big problem. I don't want that. And so that's, going all the way back to the beginning, that's why I'm like, people have to have visceral reactions, because now they're engaged with the film. And if they're engaged with the film, it's you're on the train, you're in the zone, you're with the flow of the movie. Life is good. So yeah, we were doing that, and I told the vendor, look, no gray shade. So they were doing all this work and everything was looking good, and they killing it. And well, that stunt looked great, but I knew that we were going to have to do a digital version of that stunt, just because that would give us the right kind of camera blend and the whole thing, because there was a whole camera blend that would happen before then you would see the hit, and then it's another camera blend. And so I told them, look, guys, we got to do a digital version of this. And so they match moved the entire stunt. So all of the work that you see is match moved with a little bit of simulation on top of that. Now, what we showed Chad was the full digital shot. But frame it up, and you want to see that stunt in the center of the screen because it's so damn cool. It was kind of to the right. It was on the right-hand side of the screen just because of when we shot it, and the camera does what it's going to do, and you shoot it as best you can, but every once in a while something moves a little different. And it was just over on the right-hand side of the screen. But we recreated the shot just as it was, digitally, as it was practically. So that way everything looked normal. We showed it, and Chad was like, oh man, this looks cool. Nice work, guys. Because we had, it's all green screen, and all the other work was green screen. We glued all together. He goes, guys, this is great. Looks good. And can you take the camera and do like a digital pan to the right so we can center this up? And I had not told him at this time that this was an all CG shot, because, hey, I don't want anybody questioning it at the beginning. Because if he
right.
likes it when he first sees it, then we're good. Chad's got a great eye. The guy is, he's razor sharp. You've chatted with him. He knows what he's doing. And if I figure if I can fool Chad, then I'm good. And it was a big risk, honestly. It was a real big risk. Like, if it didn't work, then I'd probably have been fired. I'm like, if I fool Chad, I tell him I fooled him. Maybe he'll fire me anyway. Well, let's see how it goes. So we did this, and I'm sitting in the room. Chad's there, Evan's there, my producer Carrie's there, and the VFX editor Mike is there. And so Chad asked this question: can we pan this over to the right? And again, I hadn't told him that this was all digital. And I said, yeah, I think we can do something, and I'm sure we can make this work. Let me chat with the team, and let's see what we can do. And immediately, the VFX editor chimes in. Oh, but hey, Chad, this is an all digital shot, so we can do anything we want. And Chad, just your podcast audience won't be able to get what I'm about to do, so I'll describe it as I do it. Chad's looking at the screen, straight at the screen, and I'm sitting probably 3 feet away from him on a couch. He's looking at the screen, and then he turns to his left real slow, and he looks at me, and he gives me like a real just suspicious look, and then he looks at the screen again, and he looks at me, looks at the screen, me, screen, and he doesn't even look at me. He goes, fuck you. Nice work. That's it.
That's when you know you've got a good shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a good moment, but I have to be honest, guys. I mean, I was, there was a little bit of poo came out, little bit. Because I'm like, if he's annoyed that I fooled him or that I hoodwinked him, and I wasn't doing it out of malicious intent, obviously, hey, maybe I'm out of here. I thought, I was like, hey, it's gonna go either way. Either it's gonna go really good, or I'll see everybody, later on when the movie comes out. I'll watch it in the theater with everybody else. But it went well, and we were able to make the camera changes that Chad wanted, and ultimately he was very happy, and But again, we couldn't have done it without the stunt team and the SFX team doing all that work ahead of time. And I know there's just so much back and forth between the digital and practical effects, and does practical look better, does digital look better? And my take on it is, do it practically. If it doesn't work, you at least have really good reference of what errors are going on that make things look natural. There was a bunch of weird random parts that sprayed out, and like other things, and a bike did a certain thing in a certain way. I never would have animated it that way, but it was correct. So we kept it. And again, when you do those kinds of things, there's all kinds of stuff. You guys watch a lot of movies. I do the same. We all kind of have a feeling on what stuff should look like. Even though we may not be experts on riding motorcycles or crashing motorcycles or sticking a sword in the back of a motorcycle. I don't do that every once in a while on the freeway. I'm on the 405. I'm like, get out of here. But every once in a while I do it. But for the most part, nobody does that kind of thing. But we all kind of have an idea in the back of our heads what stuff should look like. And so we did a lot of that. We shot a lot of stuff. But that scene, while obviously very difficult for the vendor to do, came together in a really great way. And because of the level of work that they did, it was not, I really don't want to minimize the amount of work it took to get that scene done, but it wasn't the usual like hair pulling and fighting about, oh, this looks terrible and how are we going to fix this and all that stuff. It wasn't really that way. It was definitely more of how great can we make it? Where is the other cool stuff we can do? How great can we make it versus how can we make it work at all? And when you're in that world, now you're in a different zone. And then probably the other scene that was very difficult and caused me a lot of stress was the very end where John goes over the edge of the rooftop of the Continental. That one caused me a lot of stress. Probably still does to this day. Just because, once again, nobody knows what it looks like when you see a body fall from the sky onto the ground. I don't want anybody to experience that. Nobody wants to see it's horrifying. How does that look? How does the alleyway look? Does it look real? Does it take you out of the movie? Hopefully it doesn't. That's the goal. But that was hard. And we that was another gross place that I went to. There's an alley in downtown Los Angeles. And that alley does not smell good. Let me tell you that right now. Woo! I saw at least 3 people pee in one end of the alley while I was there. And when I was scouting the alley, somebody actually did a number 2 in that same area. Yeah.
You get to go to all the best places.
It's a royal treatment that I get, gentlemen. It really is an honor and a privilege. But again, we scanned the crap out of that alley, no pun intended. We really scanned the alley like crazy and took a ton of photos. And in the end, Method Australia, who did that knife fight as well, incidentally, they're great. They did an amazing job, and that alley looks really good. And for the most part, people don't question it very much. Every once in a while, I'm sure somebody goes, that can't really be real. But it is somebody, most of the fall is real from Jackson Spadell, who is Keanu's stunt double for the movies. And most of that fall is real. We glue a couple of pieces together here and there, but it's like 90% him. Yeah, pretty cool.
Wow. That's awesome.
Well, Rob, thank you for letting I think people have seen John Wick, they've heard John Wick, and I think with your help, now they can smell John Wick.
I hope not, man.
So thank you so much for coming on and explaining this, and hopefully we will reconvene after the next couple of movies and see what kind of magic tricks you pulled off there.
Hopefully so, gentlemen. Yeah, I appreciate it very much. Thanks for having me on.
Charles, how you feeling after talking to Rob?
I feel great, happy as can be. I think there's just so many fun little stories and things that he told, and we've got some really cool things to put in our show notes here. We have the scene from The Villainess that inspired the bike chase in John Wick 3. So that movie, The Villainess, from a few years ago, I found the clip on YouTube, so we've got that in our show notes. You can go check out the original scene that inspired that
chase
motorcycle brawl fight.
Yeah.
You will have that. I also found a VFX breakdown of the bike chase, which is really cool. We got some pictures also of the behind the scenes of the green screen and the guys in the green screen suits pushing the motorcycles around and stuff. It's really cool. So you should definitely head over to our website, LightTheFuse-podcast.com, and go to the episode guide and check out the show notes for this episode. I also have a VFX breakdown in there of the knife fight with the CGI glass and knives. And that video also has a little breakdown of John Wick falling at the end of the movie as well. So there's a lot of really cool stuff in our show notes you'll definitely want to go check out at your leisure.
I feel like this miniseries was based in part on Evan telling us about that glass and that knife fight.
Yeah.
And that exciting us so much that we had to do that we finally committed. We've been talking about it, and we committed then when we heard about the CGI knife and the CGI glass, that we were just so impressed.
That's true. It was a lot of talk
Yeah.
It was a lot of bravado. And then when we actually had a conversation with Evan Schiff, and it was like, wow, this guy's awesome. Let's get Light the Wick going.
Yes. And we could not do Light the Wick without Evan. We have to stress that. He was immeasurably helpful and so nice and generous with his time. And so if you hate this podcast, you can blame him. But
yes, please direct all your hatred toward Evan Schiff. He's on Twitter. You can find him.
Yeah, he deserves it.
It's also fun that Rob brought up that there's a knife to the eye moment. And obviously the Mission Impossible franchise has a very famous knife to the eye moment as well. Yes.
Well, and I like that you're putting up the villainous scene because I loved Rob talking about it because these movies feel sort of new. They're definitely a combination of so many different things that it's kind of hard to pick out specific influences. So I love that there is a specific influence that inspired a scene in John Wick 3 and that we can show it now on our show notes. So yeah, it's really great. What else, Charles? What should we tell people to do now?
Well, I just want to give a special thank you to Sonia Miranda. Sonia's been with us for a while now and has now upped her Patreon subscriber level to this I think it's IMF director. It's the Brossel level, I think, now.
Wow.
And so, we got to give a thank you to Sonia. So couldn't do the show without you. And I got to give a thank you to our intern, Abby Smith, who helps us so much with social media and with our website. And I want to give a thank you to our editor and mixer, Luke Burson, and to our composer, Kevin Blumenfeld, for his John Wickish music. And what else, Drew?
Well, I got some more selling to do, Charles, if you'll allow me.
Oh, please.
I just want to encourage everyone to sign up for our Patreon. We have new episodes every week. In addition to the main ones, we have a new episode every week. We cover a variety of topics. I think when you get back from your paternity leave, maybe in April, we'll start doing commentary tracks for the John Wick movies. So get ready for that.
Oh, yeah, that'll be fun.
And
but we've been recording some really great ones before I go.
Oh, yeah. We've been recording a lot. And it's a really fun place. It's a really fun community. And yeah, you can do all sorts of stuff. We have so much stuff on there, especially now after doing it for a couple of years. So it's very much worth your time. It's patreon.com/LightTheFuse. And if you can't do that but still want to support the show, you can go on TeePublic and buy a t-shirt. We've got a lot of great designs there. We don't make a ton of money, but we make a little bit of money. So every little bit helps. And if not, just like, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening to the show. And, tell your friends about us, strangers. I know you're not seeing too many people these days, but maybe wear a shirt on your next Zoom call and people will ask what it is. And you say, oh, it's Light the Fuse. It's this great show. And, you get the idea. It's all about communication. And yeah, I think that's more or less it, right, Charles?
Yeah, you got to come back. We've got next week. We're talking to the guys from Filmograph. We got them coming back. They've been on the show before to talk about Mission Impossible, but now this time they worked on all 3 John Wick movies, doing the title design. So we got a great, lively conversation with that crew of maniacs over at Filmograph. It's a lot of fun. So that'll be next week. You got to come back for, and then we'll be getting back into some Light the Fuse because Paul Hirsch will be coming back.
Can't wait. Both of those are really, really fun episodes, and I can't wait for everybody to hear them. So we'll be back.
Thanks again for listening, everyone. And before we go, another mission, should you choose to accept it, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember that you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at LightTheFusePod, and email us questions or comments at lightthefusepodcast@gmail.com. The doors to any service or provider in connection with the Continental are now closed.